G'day and welcome to the Infronters. Today I'm joined by Mr. Sear, Mr. Algared,
G'day, guys.
and obviously I'm Mr. Execute. Algared, how was your trip away, man? Over in Indonesia.
Yeah, trip was good. Exhausting, learning the language, but yeah, it was good.
I could have said something, but I wasn't going to say anything. But yeah, so we're here today to talk about the Anvil Ballista. I think any long-time viewer of the show would kind of be able to tell what we're going to kind of say about this, but we thought we would have a look at it anyway, go into what we think about it, what it'll be used for, and things like that. We're going to go through the Q&A really quick, look at some of the weird questions that were asked. But yeah, just your initial impressions, guys. Algrid, what was your initial thoughts on this one?
Well, I did succumb to the temptation of my OCD, and I did acquire one. Whether it will remain as a ballista or be melted or turn into an LTI token, I have yet to decide. The thing that I did like about the idea of it, the idea that appealed to me, was the idea of using it as rocket artillery. It kind of resembled the German World War II rocket launchers. So I like that idea. But the thing that I didn't like was the fact that while the length looked like it'd be ideal for articulation, it was just a solid chassis.
Definitely would have given it a little bit more character. I can agree with that. I do question how hard that would have been to implement, though, because if you actually think of it, it technically would act like a trailer, so then you would have had to have physics on it, and I can see why they probably didn't, especially with how rocky some of the planets are, but it would have looked really cool, though, we'll give you
Yeah, it would have looked really cool, and I can understand, and it would have been something I can imagine Chris Roberts would have liked, because he likes those moving parts. But I can also see why they didn't do it, but just because of that, an extra mechanic that they had to have in. So I can understand why they didn't do it.
So what about you, Sia? How many did you buy?
All right. I bought two because I like the Snow White one and I like the olive drab one. So I was like, why not? But the most important part of it was one was LTI, one was to just melt down. So one's an LTI token, one was one that I'm actually playing with. And my thoughts, well, it's a very niche specific vehicle, excuse me. So in terms of you making money, don't buy it. Obviously, as all of us info runners would say, it's a ground vehicle. You're not gonna be able to do much with it in terms of you making the goods. But in terms of defense, I love it. I fly a lot of DCS, and I mean, I'm a flight sim fan, hardcore. I do a lot of seed. That's my favorite thing, which is suppression of enemy air defense. So I literally fly around and I blow up enemy SAMs. So this is legit something I've been waiting for, and especially with something like the Vanguard Sentinel, which is probably one of my favorite ships in game. So
this fits into your game style, does it? Are you flying
it
around
it
searching
it
for
it
enemy SAM
does
sites and blowing them up?
it does this.
You need to know how
I
to.
understand.
You need to know how to
Huh?
kill it, don't you? So you need one, so you need to know how to kill it. That's what you're saying.
I
I'm sure.
mean, you're not wrong. Got to know your enemy, right? But what it reminds me of, just looking, I saw this when I was at work, and immediately what I thought was it reminds me of Tunguska, which is a very nasty Russian mobile SAM, and it kind of reminds me of a Patriot, which is the U.S. military's SAM launcher. It kind of is a mix mash between it, so
The really
I think
cool
it's
ones.
cool.
Sorry, I'm a layman when it comes to a lot of this stuff, but they're the ones that kind of like pop off and kind of go up vertically, aren't they?
Kind of. The more ones that do that are actually the Russians. They have like the S-300, and literally the missile rack will be laying on the truck, and it just pops up, and then it'll just like boom, and then it'll just launch straight in the air. It's pretty scary, but those are also really cool too. I Again, this is the type of gameplay I enjoy doing, so I what can I say? It's pretty cool that they added this. But right now, in terms of you doing stuff with it in the verse, you're pretty limited until you get the 890 jump. So if you got this and you got an 890 jump, you're basically putting down $1,000 to get a vehicle, and then to get a vehicle to move it in the future.
That's right, because it can only be carried by, what is it, the Idris,
Per the Q&A.
the what is it, the Idris, the A2, or the
Basically all the Starlifters.
Hercules range,
Yeah.
all the Starlift, the Hercules range, and the 890 jump can fit it.
And you can sling load it if you have an Argo SRV and you have the tractor beam and like, woo, move it somewhere else. But tractor beams aren't in game yet.
They did mention you can put it on Krakens and stuff like that and fire them.
Oh
We're
yeah,
about to
you
go
can put it
through
on
that.
Krakens.
About to go through that in the Q&A anyway.
Although getting it
I
on
want
top
to
of
see
the
somebody
Kraken
do that.
landing bay might be a bit difficult because you'd need to have something to carry it to actually put it there in the first place. But
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go through this Q&A. So the first one goes, it's long story short said, can you use it to fire over hills and things that are out of line of sight and stuff like that? And currently all targets, whether air or ground, require both high enough signature and line of sight. But basically they're looking to, along the line, to add that in down the line. I think that really up the gameplay with this quite significantly, in my personal opinion, in regards to this.
Yeah, well, I definitely think so as well. It certainly fits into the gameplay I hoped you'd be able to do with this AA artillery weapon as well. What's the use of artillery if you can't fire out of line of sight?
Yeah, this is it's kind of interesting because this basically it's beyond visual range or BVR, what we're talking about. And generally speaking, you have a SAM and it has either its own dedicated radar or it has, I kid you not, a radar station that's right by it, and the two communicate through each other through like a cord. So theoretically, even modern day SAMs are able to shoot beyond visual range. So I get like as a balancing thing, they didn't want you to be able to do this as like, well, I shouldn't say a balancing, but as of right now you can't. But in the future, I mean, if you can have someone laser paint or laser designate, then that would be really interesting. I would like to see it. So,
yeah, and that's something to look forward to. Although they did also say that the actual range is not 2,000 as the sales brochure said, but it's actually around 10,000.
and that's
Which is
depending
a
on
good
the
thing.
emissions.
Yeah,
which
that
is
depends
a
on the
very
emissions of the
important
ship.
things. Because a lot of people don't understand how ship emissions work. But XU, you're saying something, about to say something?
I was just going to say I was going to talk about the next two questions and just paraphrase them because they're kind of like really generic.
It does make those stealth components valuable if you're worried about being shot out the sky by a SAM unit.
The irony of the commercial, 2 eclipses get shot down.
So basically, it pretty much says there's no plans for modularity on the Ballista. It also says that if you currently want to restock your ammo, you've got to go back to one of the landing pads to restock your ammo, which is kind of a given. But in the future, that there'll be other options like the Vulcan that can reload it and stuff like that. Then someone asked, isn't 2,000 meters too short for an anti-aircraft vehicle? And they're basically kind of go along the lines of that it's a bug, and they want the range to be up to about 10,000 meters, and that you can also do it through other means like locking onto heat signatures and stuff like that.
They actually said that's a misprint in the brochure. They actually said the effective range is effectively around 10,000. They have shot 9,984 meters, and it's basically just the visual range of the target. So if you can see it, or you can detect it on your scanners, you can fire it and missile it. And that'll just depend on the signature you get from your
I firmly believe this is going to change in the future because the bigger the ship, unless you have stealth components, but if you understand how ship emissions work, generally when you have bigger ships, that means your components are bigger, and bigger components would give off a bigger signature, and most components are giving off a high amount of EM, your electromagnetic spectrum. They're giving off most of that, and then they'll give off your infrared, and then altogether is heat between how hard your components are working. So I feel like the 890 jump, for example, it's a capital ship, the first capital ship we have in the game. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a capital ship having capital class components, no? It has capital class components. So that just means you're going to have an even higher amount of signature radiating off your ship. So I will be surprised if I will not be surprised if you're able to shoot farther than 10K, because the bigger the ship, the more the spectrum, the easier are to target, so on, so on.
Yeah, because that 10K is based on what we've got in game at present.
Thank you, exactly.
So the signatures we got at present. So when we get bigger ships with bigger signatures, you can expect the range to be further. So
On a side tangent, when you're talking about the 890 jump, they actually mentioned this week that they're adding in some gameplay for it, a possible new mode that they're working on for when it goes into the PU, which would be interesting. Something like, board the 890 jump or something like that. Kind of like when they talked about boarding the Idris back in the day.
Very interesting.
All right, the next question is pretty much what Algared said about having to move it and stuff, needing things like what can transport it and what vehicles, so things like the 890 jump can technically fit it and all the other ships and stuff like that. Besides the included 2 times S2 guns on the turret and stats page also listed an optional turrets, what does this mean? Another turret, more guns? This is an error and the stats page will be resolved. The optional turret mentioned is the default equipped turret, which is ironically funny.
And that's the spoke as well, so you can't even... I don't think you can really change the turret at all.
You can change the guns, but you can't change out the turret.
You can't change the turret.
You can remove the turret, actually. I was able to fit the Ballista into a Valkyrie, and Execute and I were doing this. I actually flipped the Valkyrie, and my Ballista was, like, really crazy. But you can remove the turret, and you could it could just basically just have the missile rack on the back.
The weird thing is, though, the very next question says they've got no plans to change the different size missiles and torpedoes, which is a real shame. I think that really lets this vehicle down quite a bit.
So, actually, the one thing I did do, the first thing I did, because one thing I've learned is, like, completely customizing all my vehicles, I swapped out the size 5 missiles for size 5 torpedoes, and I put the Valkyries on. And it was just hilarious because they're so big and bulky. Literally, when I launched the missiles, they were going in a linear line because they were trying to climb and gravity was pulling them. So they were just going in a straight line. It took them like 5 seconds to actually launch. I was like, jeez.
Yeah,
so you can change your loadout, but like it says right here, I mean, you're pretty limited on your options for size 7 missiles.
Yeah, I think the question was really, can we change the racks on the side? So instead of saying that, that before
they're bespoke.
We change down. So you've always got to have those size weapons that are on it, but you can change the missiles themselves that you take. So yeah,
at least they give us that option. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, I might have to read that question more thoroughly. They basically pretty much dodged the next question, which is along the lines of, can you explain how air versus ground combat is going to be balanced? And they said this take too long to talk about it here. The next question is, will the skins be purchasable separately? Blah, blah, blah. They say they won't be purchasable, but that doesn't mean they won't be purchasable in-game. They never actually specifically mention that. I think eventually you'll be able to, say you really want the desert skin, I think you'll be able to go earn some rep with some faction and earn that desert skin. I don't think that will, way back in the day, Chris Roberts has said everything will be earnable in-game. Everything from subscriber flare to gold suits to the whole 9 yards, I think all of it will be eventually earnable in-game by some form or another. How hard you've got to work to get it might be a completely another thing, though.
Well, to add to what you're saying and to put it into perspective, I actually expect that something equivalent to the Million Mile High Club will be available to players in-game. How rare it will be and how difficult it will be to get is another thing, but I believe everyone will have that opportunity to be able to acquire the equivalent of that Million Mile High Club.
Yeah, I can see that.
And yes, that is something dear to my heart.
Yep. So then one of the next questions about how the Ballista can attack ground targets. Can it just free fire and that shoots across like an artillery? And the response says all missiles currently require a target lock. We don't have any plans for missile free fire, but may somehow be more suited to less smart ordnance in the future. So that goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning about the laser targeting. I think that's going to be like a really cool, sweet mechanic. Until that's in, though, I don't think people will recognize how cool that'll be. Like, just the ability to, kind of sneak up on a convoy.
It's very, very valuable. Believe me. I use it all the time in DCS when I can't see something.
Paint something and then have the artillery fire from over the hills at it and then just disappear.
Take out a whole convoy. If you see a convoy coming along transporting something as an example and you're a bunch of pirates, you bombard the front, bombard the back, and they're trapped. Especially in they're like a little valley or something, and they've all got to get out and fight you on foot. So, so many different little plans there I can see cogging around in my head, so I can only imagine what everyone else is going to come up with.
Death to the Nova tank. That's what
There's another example.
When they bring you.
Will the Ballista be able to intercept other missiles such as the S9 torpedoes and bombers of the Hercules, like the A2 bombs? This is the response, this functionality that we will want all ships to have in the future, not just the Ballista, being able to target incoming ordnance seems like a critical to keeping larger ships and ground outposts intact. Of course, targeting is just a part of the equation. It certainly helps to pick a suitable weapon system for the interception. Or the interceptors, he called it. That seems really logical to me, but wouldn't you just use a gun to take it out? You wouldn't fire something more expensive to take something less expensive out?
Well, to actually, again, what I said earlier, the Tunguska, this is a really nasty sand because if you are shooting a missile at it, it can lock on the missile and shoot a missile back and counter your missile. That is I'm dead serious. It's so annoying in DCS and it's very scary because, I mean, you have to go back around, do it again, and then by the time that happens, it shuts off its radar and it's gone. And then it can just beamline you by a visual line. So I see this for like a size 9. I could see this happening for a missile, but I also can see it has 2 Gatling guns on the front. A point defense weapon like a Sea-Wiz is a large Gatling gun. It's an R2-D2 and an A-10 Warthog put into one. It's a big robot that locks and just bzzz, and boom, that ordnance is gone. So I can see you using the default weapons or you putting some scatter guns on the front, and you're just spamming flak at whatever's coming in. But of course, they need to add the ability for your radar to detect the missile and paint it for you so the gunner can actually go, oh, hey, there it is, and go pam, pam, and there it goes.
Anything you want to add, or?
No, I fully agree with that.
Okay. I guess the last question here is, the Ballista can fire only while stationary, but what if they're stationary aboard a more moving ship, for example, a Starlift or a Kraken or an Idris? And then basically they state, yeah, you can do all that, but it might be dangerous.
I personally thought
Backlash.
I personally thought that was a silly question. Like, you're firing inside the hangar of a ship. The risk of hitting your ship when you launch that missile is rather...
Yeah.
Algared, I think you need to answer the phone. No, just kidding. It's all good. There was a phone ring in the background. I'm pretty sure it was your phone because I've heard it before. Anyway, yeah, so I really do think that that a lot of people are going to try that. I can see a Kraken landing as a base and literally just being covered in these things, or even just having them around a Kraken to protect it while on the ground.
I think if a Kraken's on the ground, why would you have them on the landing pads anyway? You'd have them around about.
Yeah, dispersed, not in a very clustered area.
Yeah, because if they're in a clustered area, a couple of well-placed bombs and it's out of there. I could see a value in having them on the landing pads while you're flying through space, but then the landing pads aren't secure, so it could be dangerous. And then how do you get them on the landing pads to start with anyway?
The Argo SRV, of course.
So, yeah.
All right, final thoughts on the Anvil Ballista. And would you recommend people get it, or would you recommend people can play with it and turn it into an LTI token like kind of what Sear's done, or what do you think? Algared, you go first.
If you have OCD, then yes. If you don't have OCD and you don't really have a desire to do any of that ground play stuff, then why touch it with a 10-foot putt?
I think I'll just kind of add to what Algared said there with the vehicles. I think vehicles are really not worth what they are at this price point. I think this vehicle also, from the Q&A, the fact that you kind of can't change the racks, that I find that a little bit distressing. I would like to be able to customize the missiles I fire at people. I find that a little, like, that is the primary function of this vehicle, and if you can't change them, it's a little worrying. Sear, your thoughts?
Let's see. The fact it doesn't have modularity, it takes a hit in my book, because you could easily make modules that allow you to take off the missile rack altogether and put in an ammo crate, put in a fuel crate, or somehow make the make it longer and add like a small troop transport for it.
Totally agree. With that
That's one thing with the hit. The second thing that currently takes the hit for me is the fact that when you launch a missile, it goes straight toward the target. It does not go up and then go out like a real missile should.
I think they'll fix
And
that
so,
eventually. I think that's
yeah,
a bug.
that's
We'll count
that's
it as
my
a bug.
pet peeve. I know. I had to say it bugs
I know.
me. But overall, as I say to usually everybody, if you see yourself in the foreseen future and using it, if you want to get it now, fine. But again, it's a ground vehicle. Theoretically, it's going to be much cheaper than a ship, so you can probably buy it in game. But there's nothing stopping you now. So if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah,
Try it out. See if you like it. Go ahead.
I agree with you there. I was just going to say that, yeah, if you want to get it, you get it. If you find it like yourself, slotting into your playstyle, then yeah, go, by all means get it. That said, I think bang for your buck, wise as us Aussies say, I don't think it's worth it. And I also think its price point of it, what is it, $120, $125 American, I think, in there somewhere.
I think so.
That's crazy. Like that makes it more expensive than a Cutlass. And in the game at the moment, the Cutlass is the most versatile thing in the game. So I find that really in a really weird price point. I'm surprised it's as expensive as it is. It's also, like I said when I talked to about this with Dyson last time, I can't see why it's more expensive than the Novatank. I don't understand.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the only other thing that really surprised me was the fact that we didn't see customization used on the sale of this as well. And I know it was the 300 was kind of a test bed, and they didn't know which would be the next ship to have it. But given so little of this is there, just to have that variation on components or missile loadout even would have been ideal.
I think from the Q&A though, Algared, they kind of said that there's not much to customize. That's the sad part. You can't change the missile racks. But anyway, I think we're going to have to wrap it up here. So if you like this video, we're going to try and get a second one out this week because we missed last week because we had everyone away. We should hopefully have Osiris back soon as well. He's coming back from hiatus. Yeah, anything you guys would like to add?
No, I'm good.
No, if you like, I've already said that. Got Discord as well. Leave a comment if you tell us what you think about the Ballista. Did you get yourself one? Did you not get yourself one? We read every comment. We might not be able to reply to everyone, but we try to read everyone we can. Right. He's been Seer. He's been Algared. I've been Execute. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Take care.